if you have a brand, what are the communities that you should be tapping into? What are those folks in those communities saying, thinking, feeling? What are the brands that they're talking about and excited about? And what can you learn?
Hey, Sara, welcome to the show. How are you?
Oh, I'm so great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Of course, I'm very excited about the episode because we talk about, communities, how they evolved and the importance of that. And then we're going to, talk about, the Brand Yearbook. There's a lot of very interesting things to go over. But before doing that, usually when, our guests, they present themselves using the map, a way that is basically divided in mission. So what do you aim to achieve with what you do, right? Any achievements that you are really proud of, could be in your life, could be in your career. And the last one is the purpose. So why do you do what you do?
I love this, and I'm such a big believer in this. So thank you for giving me this framework. So when I talk about my mission, I help brands build real relationships with their audiences. And to do that, I kind of act as a translator, helping make visible the spaces and places and languages that young people are showing up in and the ways they're speaking online in ways that brands can understand so they can connect with their audiences more authentically. Why do I care about brands? Because I feel like brands are really, coming to play a much more central role, for better or for worse, in our formation of identity in our society, as we see forces like religion and government really take a backseat, arguably, and really change shape. So I find that really fascinating, and I want to help shape what that looks like. In terms of achievements, oh goodness, I started my career in journalism, and I, always was obsessed with magazines. I like to follow where conversations were happening, where the zeitgeist was naturally going. So I went from magazines to digital media, where I ran a bunch of sections at Huffington Post, working with Nora Ephron, who was my idol. And then I went to Facebook because I saw that conversation shifting again to social media, and I wanted to be a part of that. Overall, I'm basically doing the same thing now, chasing down where are conversations happening and how do we decode them. I would say one of my proudest things that I've done professionally is I helped make Instagram the top social platform for fashion from about 2013 to 2015, just with a series of, really smart partnerships and kind of reverse engineering press buzz and looking at the landscape and going, where can we win? And it was such a wild west. And I didn't even really know fashion or love it, but it was the challenge of being able to see a platform disrupt an industry. 5 years ago, I left Facebook, Instagram to do what I'm doing now, which is working with brands and platforms and publishers and helping them figure out how to connect authentically with audiences, specifically young audiences. And in that time, I've been doing a lot of writing and speaking. I would say my other professional sort of win has been writing for different outlets like Harvard Business Review, which I think you've seen that piece. I introduced a term called digital campfires, which I can speak to more since the topic is community. And it really has been super exciting to see digital campfires come to play a much more central role in the way that we think and talk and communicate online. Purpose, I would say my purpose is similar to when I was a journalist, to tell the truth. I like to probe and ask questions and study and say the thing not being said to get to the heart of what is really going on. And it just so happens that my area of truth telling is really the digital media landscape and what's really going on there.
Amazing. Thank you for that. And what a journey, right? And getting together all these different experiences and coming from different background, right? That's what I say all the time. It helps so much because if you only maybe nothing against being all the time only do one thing, but getting different perspectives, right? And point of view, it helps a lot. Also with what you do right now, right? In terms of helping brands, and I think it's quite crucial, right? To have the 360 double view.
I think so, yeah, but I'm somewhat biased. But yes, I think so. Those circuitous routes to whatever you're doing now, where you can meld together a lot of different disciplines, I think is crucial for right now, especially in this moment of AI everything.
Oh yeah, especially now. I do agree with that. So let's talk about communities, right? Communities. First of all, how let's start from the basics, right? How they evolved, right, in the past years, because especially with social media, everything changed, right? So I'm curious to hear from you, how did you see them changing and evolving? and why and how they play like, a central role, right? When it comes to especially the diverse audience, getting connected with other communities and so on. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Absolutely. So I would say that I've been studying online communities in one way or another for years. I mentioned HuffPost divorce. Huffington Post, I ran a section called Huffington Post divorce. I had not been married or divorced at the time. Knew nothing. I was a child of divorce, but that's about it. And this was like the first online community devoted to the topic of divorce to serve people who'd gone through that experience or going through that experience. And it was wild because we looked at conversations happening on in that moment. It was Twitter, and sort of reverse engineered stories about them, whether it was a viral tweet called the moment I knew my marriage was over, which we basically created an event around that. So it was using social conversation to sort of like bring community together. And that was my first experience with that. Then doing that at Instagram and looking at the fashion community and sort of seeing how fashion and subcultures were evolving thanks to social platforms. That was like a next sort of aha moment for me around how can we use digital technology to really foster and grow both online and offline communities. And I would constantly bump up against different niches and subcultures in the process of working with brands in my world as a solopreneur. But it wasn't until 2020 when I started to observe a trend that I spoke to in the intro of younger audiences kind of moving away from larger social platforms to smaller, more intimate online spaces and communities. And I dubbed those spaces digital campfires. And I wrote that piece and I said, look, this is what I think is happening. These younger audiences are moving to what I said was like 3 different types of smaller community spaces. One was private messaging campfires. Another was kind of micro community campfires. This is what I call them. And the third was shared experience campfires. So gaming, a platform like Roblox, that kind of thing. And that was in 2020, which feels like 1,000 years ago now. And that has only evolved. And the reasons for that are many, and we can talk about them. But in the 4 years that have passed since I wrote that piece, I have seen those types of communities and more really come to play like even a much more central role.
How do we even find communities, right? Because of course, you can Google certain keywords and find something, but then there is subreddits, right? There are Discord channels, there are Roblox servers where people meet, right, and talk about certain things. How do you even approach finding community?
Yeah. I think that there's an inside out and an outside in approach. So the inside out is let's say I'm a brand. I work with brands. That's who I talk to. So let's say I'm a brand or I have something to sell, a product or service. Instead of thinking about who is obviously going to be interested in my brand, if I make cereal, I'm Cheerios, and I want to know who's interested in breakfast cereal. It's much more about who shares the values, beliefs, ideas with what I stand for. That could potentially, reflect other communities. So if I'm an outdoors brand, who are the people that are going to be interested? Well, maybe there's some really interesting outdoors communities. There's one I always go back to called splunking. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Spelunking, it's like caving. It's like intense caving. Please edit that if it's not the right pronunciation. But people going in really small caves. There's a huge community of people who do that for fun. And where are the outdoor brands interacting with that? Wouldn't that be amazing if that's your identity? That's part of who you are. It's part of what gives you courage and kind of sets you apart from your peers. And you see the right brand showing up there in the right way that's aligned with your values, beliefs, interests. There's so much there. And I see some brands doing it, and we can talk about it. But I do think it's pretty nascent still. And I see these communities as almost like the next iteration of creators. And so we're very familiar now with what it's like to integrate and, partner with a creator. What's it like to do that with a community?
Is your brand ready to amplify its reach? Well, the Influencer Marketing Factory is here for you. We are a global influencer marketing agency helping brands ignite their growth. From influencer identification to campaign strategy, handling legalities and agreements, to managing shipping and logistics, we got you all covered. We work with hundreds of brands across different verticals, from Fortune 500 companies to direct-to-consumer brands. And we don't just stop there. With detailed ROI analysis, we help brands like yours measure success, transforming impressions into conversions. You can find us at theinfluencermarketingfactory.com or just searching the Influencer Marketing Factory on Google. Why do you think that sometimes some brands are not doing that? Are they missing the right person in the company? Is it not their priority? Are they still new to this concept? Therefore, they are not having a dedicated budget and time for that?
I think it's all the above. I think that marketers today have huge challenges. There's massive changes, and they are, by and large, very concerned with the right now. And the right now has a lot of problems. And so when you're thinking, if you're a CMO and you're like, what am I going to solve for? It's really hard to think about, I'm going to go unearth communities that might potentially be of value. And so I think it's part of my job is to show what the value is and to directly connect that to their bottom line. And so that's kind of where I'm focused, is to try to show, look, there's a lot of value here, especially as we go into a world of, no cookies and no, massive like privacy walls, people hiding out in digital campfires where you cannot reach them. You as a marketer are going to need to get smarter about that. But right now, I think they're just like hanging on for dear life. There's a lot going on. And so I understand, I'm empathic, but I definitely see some brands doing this. And one of my favorite is McDonald's. I think they're absolutely crushing it with this exact skill set. And I don't know if you saw, but recently they rolled out something called, and I'm going to watch it, but it's like McDonald's, which is basically like, it came out of anime fan, sort of like a fictional restaurant that had been something that had been like envisioned for years. And so, that is a result of McDonald's marketing immersing themselves in culture, subcultures and community-driven subcultures, and really just listening and going, what are people saying? Are they talking about us? How so? What's the language? And then authentically adopting and bringing that into their own way they speak.
Fantastic. And so I'm interested, what are some of the brands, right, that you feature there? Why do you do that? How do you even find them? So let's start with that, and then we're curious also to talk about, Gen Z consumers and how they want to see brands these days. But let's start again for the basics. Just can you tell us, what is the Brand Yearbook? What did you feature and why do you do that?
Yeah, for sure. So the yearbook is an annual report that I create with my brilliant friend and fellow kind of brand digital commerce content obsessive, Michelle Goad. So she's former head of Gen Z innovation at Nike. She was actually my client. That's how I met her. And we just became like mind meld friends. So in it, we highlight the brands that really captured the attention and mind share and wallets of Gen Z audiences and consumers in the previous year. So we've done this for 2 years running, 2023, right? We came out with in 2024. The whole thing is packaged up like a totally 90s nostalgic yearbook. Yeah. Because honestly, these reports take themselves so seriously, and we just decided to have some fun with it and also capture some attention of our own, which kind of worked. So the brands really reflect categories as wide-ranging as, I would say, beauty, tech, health, sports, food, CPG, fashion, and they really speak to major shifts that are reshaping Gen Z lives. And the reason we do this is to kind of look at what is the playbook that these brands are using. We really want the whole thing to stand as almost like a reverse engineered playbook for winning Gen Z audiences, so that a brand could look at that and go, okay, I can apply that to my own play.
It would be great, like, if you can, maybe you can select a couple or three, totally up to you, the one that are already maybe like, let's do like the one that are already doing a great job, which one they are and why, and maybe stick one like about opportunities that they have.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, why don't we talk about F1? Because what I love about I'll chat about that one. What I love about the yearbook is we do a ton of diligence over the course of the year looking at, this is all totally subjective. We're not doing like quantitative studies on this, but we filter in a lot of information. And some of that means we're looking at brands we don't know a ton about, but we study. And so we're looking and looking. And so F1 is one that came on our radar. Everyone sort of saw that big F1 moment in Vegas. It was all over social. But that's been building for a really long time. And I don't know if you're familiar with this. They have a show. It's basic. It's a very big show, and it's on Netflix called Drive to Survive. And it was it's a docuseries all about kind of the drama of F1. And you don't really think about that, but actually it was a huge, I would say, lever in F1's overall success and democratization to a broader audience. And so we go into, okay, how actually did that work? Why did that work? And I would say it's part of this larger play of finding the entertainment DNA in your brand. And so that applied to a lot of different brands. We saw that with, for example, Nintendo. Nintendo came out with the Super Mario movie that, Nintendo's a gaming brand. And sure, you could say, okay, it's entertainment at its core, but we didn't have like a relationship with Mario. They had to build that and characters and story. And so where is that through line in your brand that you can tease out story, characters, and entertain? And that is really a huge, I don't even want to call it a trend anymore because it's just table stakes. You have to be figuring out how can your brand sort of morph into that and what are the opportunities for entertainment. So F1 was a super interesting one. And I don't know if you know, but it has a huge female fan base too. This is like, it's diverse. It's there's women into it. So that I would say has a lot hinging on that docuseries, which is really, really interesting. There's so many. One that we think could, be doing more, I would say Google. So it's not, obviously AI is the biggest story of the moment and for the foreseeable future. Where we landed was that Google has the biggest opportunity to insert AI tools into our lives in a very, I would say, natural way through their suite of workplace tools, through YouTube, through tools we already use. And what I think is so interesting is that up until this point, we have seen AI tools be used just as tools, or marketed rather, just as tools. There are things that you can do for, making videos or working, but actually it's a total life enhancer. So from a brand point of view, how do you sell that story? And I think what we said is, how does it enhance the lives of Zs? Well, that's a very natural fit with Google. And we haven't really seen them doing that as much as we would have liked. And so what's the opportunity? You have all of this. You're already being used. AI is really a tool that can up-level all of your experiences and really almost help you self-actualize, help you become a better, smarter, more creative, more powerful version of yourself. That's how I think it should be positioned versus a tool. I think that's not only good for AI as a whole to help us understand this is a friendly thing, hopefully, but as a company, I think Google's leaving a lot of money on the table by not taking that approach.
Fantastic. And is there anything else that I didn't ask you today? Something that you're either excited, something that you want to share? Because I'm pretty sure that you are like seeing so many things and so many insights and info. So I know that even if we did like a 10-hour, like a podcast, we wouldn't cover everything. But and the last question for you is like, is there anything else that you're super excited to talk about?
I'm really excited about the evolving online community space. I think that despite the fact that communities is the biggest buzzword in marketing today, I still think it's deeply misunderstood and there's so much room for education. And so what I'm really excited about is something I'm calling digital campfire reports, which are reports that I've been doing for brands for the past several months, which are essentially audience insights related to personal identity extracted from aligned brand communities. So if you have a brand, what are the communities that you should be tapping into? What are those folks in those communities saying, thinking, feeling? What are the brands that they're talking about and excited about? And what can you learn? Those insights can plug into just about every aspect of your, marketing pipeline, product pipeline, business. And it's really exciting. And I think we're going to start to see a lot more of that. So I feel like I should be at the frontier of this and using these reports. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I do agree. I think that, sometimes, numbers and metrics are absolutely important, but sometimes we're some of the time like big qualitative analysis.
Exactly.
It's all those like soft skills, right, of a business that you have to you have to, especially these days where people don't want to buy into a brand, but they want to buy into the brand values. They want to buy in the people behind the brand. They want to buy, as you correctly said before, like in the storytelling and the narrative that is behind that. That is why it's way more important, because at the end of the day, it's the customers that you choose where you're gonna go as a brand, right? You can do whatever you want, but if you're not gonna buy, they're not gonna be loyal. They're gonna be love your brand. Then it's
Exactly. Yeah, no, totally. And you also have to think about yourself. If you can't just do all this stuff without thinking, what inherently, what am I all about as a brand? What is the transformation that I'm sparking? So I think there are definitely a lot of work on the brand side as well to really get into what are the values, beliefs, ideas, things that I stand for. And if you haven't done that exercise, it's going to be a lot harder to find the communities that are aligned, because they're just not going to care just about your product. Yep. It's really going to have to be, what are the things that intersect from a values and beliefs? It is those psychographic qualities, but I do think communities are a way into that.
Fantastic. This was very valuable. I know for sure that every marketer listening, even creators, right? Like everyone that can listen, like today can get tips on that. And I also like when you say like do the little exercise, right? Little, I mean, it's a big exercise on say who you are as a brand, where are you going, and what you want to do, and so on. Sara, this was amazing, very valuable, And so I wanted just to thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. Obviously, I get really excited talking about this, and it honestly is so interesting for me. So I'm so glad it resonated.
Fantastic, loved it. And as said, we're gonna put all the different links in the description so we can easily see and find everything. Fantastic. Sara, thank you so much again. And this was the Influence Factor by the Influence Marketing Factory, and I'll see you next week.